Welcome back to the search for the best RTS, the series where I plan to go through all the RTS games out there and rank them using a tier list going from the lowest of the F tier to the highest of the S tier. Dawn of War is an RTS game set in the Warhammer 40k universe, and was developed by Relic Entertainment, also known for the Company of Heroes series. On a fresh install, Dawn of War does not have widescreen support, so all you gotta do is download this one file and unpack it into your game folder and let it replace all files that it needs to replace. This will mess up the minimap a bit, but I prefer having the game at 1080p. Next is fixing the zoom levels, because by default this game is honestly way too zoomed in. All you have to do is download these three files and throw them into the engine data and enable the 3D camera in the game settings, and it should work. I'll leave links to both of these fixes in the description below. Dawn of War definitely looks its age to some extent, but I'd say overall it still looks good and has its charm. Maps and environments are decent, sometimes I think they can kind of blend together, but overall I'd say maps look good for the time. I think the biggest stinkers when it comes to the maps are the cityscapes. I can't put my finger on what it is exactly, but they kinda just look bland and uninteresting in my opinion. Though the more naturey maps I like, and I think they look pretty good, like the swampy forest or the tundras. Now where they have a slight trade-off with maps and such, they make up 100% with the unit models. These are pretty detailed and honestly look great. There's a surprising amount of details on characters for an RTS its age, and you can zoom in quite a bit to see all of the little details while in game, so the quality of the models is not wasted. Animations are also great in this game. Something that is very synonymous with the Dawn of War games are sync kills. Sync kills are fantastic, and there are quite a few of them. Some of the best are definitely when two higher tier units fight, like the Force Commander and Bloodthirster. A lot of buildings also have little animations for when units get spawned, which I like. Dawn of War is also great at making battlefields look like battlefields with persistent bodies and blood everywhere. Voice acting in this game is absolutely fantastic. Probably some of the best voice acting ever in video games in my opinion. There are so many memorable lines.
Boys! Don't hold on to dead! Where to?
With all due haste.
He who stands with me shall be my brother.
Orks, 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 orks. Here we go!
Heresy grows from idleness.
Land Raider armored transport here.
The battlefield awaits.
Must kill!
All the voice acting in the story is great. Gabriel Angelos just embodies what a Space Marine should be.
Is grim. While the Blood Ravens crushed the main Ork offensive at the spaceport, the bulk of their force is not engaged.
The Chaos Sorcerer Sindri has such an evil, conniving voice.
In pain. The universe rewards those willing to spill their life's blood for the promise of power.
And pretty much the whole cast of this game is great, whether it's a Chaos Cultist or an Ork war boss in this game. It just knocks it out of the park. The only voice acting that's not great, but I honestly still love, is the in-game announcer. He kind of just sounds checked out and doesn't want to be there, but I love it.
2 minutes until take and hold victory.
The overall soundscape is alright. It was never really insulting on the ears, but it could get a little messy sometimes. Gunfire and melee sound decent. I think the best sounds probably come from the vehicles and the loud booms of tanks and roaring engines, but nothing really stuck out to me that much. UI sounds are good, nothing distracting or irritating, just satisfying clicks and quick sounds that let you know something is done. Music is decent, a good amount of the ambient softer tracks I like, and there were some other songs that stuck with me, and I'd say overall I liked the music in the game. Dawn of War has 4 factions: Space Marines, Orks, Eldar, and Chaos Space Marines. Like with most RTS games, all of these factions share some basic rules. All of them have upgrade buildings where you can increase unit health, damage, how many special weapons you can have, and more. They all have a barracks and a vehicle depot of some sort, and so on. All factions start with a builder and an HQ, and you'll see when you start to build your first structure a white circle around your HQ which shows the radius you can build in. You can't increase the size of the circle, but you can make more HQs to build in more areas, or build listening posts, which we'll talk about in a bit. There's two types of resources for all factions in Dawn of War: requisition and power. Gaining power is as simple as building a generator, but getting requisition is much more active. Instead of something like cutting down trees, building some sort of resource building, or anything like that, Dawn of War maps are littered with strategic points that you can capture and build listening posts on. These not only work as defenses for strategic points, but they also increase the amount of resources you get from it, and can be upgraded to have better defenses and increase resource generation. They also put little building areas around it. I really like this way of getting your primary resource, as it's very active and makes you want to fight for these strategic points. It also lets you know where there are most likely going to be other players, so you kind of get an idea of what to attack and where. Relic definitely ended up liking this system because they kind of did a rendition of it for the Company of Heroes series. The game also has some other points you can capture, like relics, which act as strategic points, but also allow you to build special units like a Squiggoth or Terminator squads. Critical locations give you a pretty good view around it, but you can't build listening posts on them. And lastly, slag deposits, which are pretty much just strategic points for power generation. You can't build listening posts on them, and you don't need to capture them, you just need to build a giant generator on it. All factions also have a couple hero units. These can be pretty strong and can be upgraded with the usual health and damage, but can also gain new abilities. Unlike a lot of other RTS games, heroes don't really level up in Dawn of War, and you don't really have to worry about an early game like microing your hero to make sure they level up, so they don't end up sucking in late game. They slowly just get more powerful through upgrades just like normal units would, and I actually like this for the more active, faster paced nature of Dawn of War. Dawn of War falls into a category of RTS games I like to call squad-based, where instead of something like Age of Empires where you spawn individual units, in Dawn of War you spawn a squad of units, which I personally prefer much more. This game also just does squads of units in probably my favorite way out of any RTS. For instance, let's say you make a tactical marine squad. They start with 4 units and are all equipped with bolters. Then you can increase the squad size and also give the squad new weapons, such as plasma guns, heavy bolters, rocket launchers, or flamers. Space Marine squads start with the capability of only using 2 special weapons, but with the proper research can have a maximum of 4 special weapons per squad. You can create fun specialized squads like going with 2 heavy bolters and 2 flamers to create a good anti-infantry squad, or you can just make a squad of mainly plasma guns to deal with heavy infantry. It's a really fun mechanic that allows you to customize the way you play and deal with situations in what I think is a pretty fun and engaging way. Squads can also get commander/leader units that can increase morale and usually have some sort of special ability behind them. Speaking of squads, most factions have some sort of special unit that can be attached to squads, giving new abilities and buffs, such as the Apothecary, which passively heals Marines in a squad. Hero units can also be attached to squads in the same way. I really like this mechanic, and it's a really good integration of some of the rules from the actual tabletop game of Warhammer. One thing that also really fits with the spirit of the tabletop game is the Army Painter. The Army Painter lets you make custom color schemes with a choice of emblems for any of the 4 factions. You can pretty much choose whatever you want when it comes to colors, having a full RGB color scale, which just means endless color combos. I really like this way of player expression, but it also just works as a more engaging player color. Most RTS games just let you choose from a couple different colors in a skirmish match to help differentiate players. But in Dawn of War, it's the custom-made color scheme that defines which player is which I really think that more RTS games should have a system like this, cause it's a fantastic idea. The game's UI is good. When things are complete, they appear on the left side of the screen, and menus don't feel confusing to navigate. Units have various stances. You have your more defensive stance, the aggressive one, hold fire, and focus buildings. Most units also have the ability to switch between attacking with ranged weapons or melee weapons, and they'll have their little corresponding damage numbers for both in their unit card below. So if you have a group of slugger boys, which are primarily melee, but you want them to stay back and use their pistols, the game lets you do that, but they're not going to be at their full potential. If units are engaged in melee, they can't use ranged attacks, so you can take this into consideration when targeting units. So let's say you're in a fight and they have some sort of super ranged unit in the back. You can send some melee guys over there to engage them and take fire off of your main force, which I really like this kind of counterplay to it. I also really like how this game does balancing compared to rock, paper, scissors type of balancing. Like I said earlier, squads can get different types of weapon to deal with different types of units, so your infantry isn't always just anti-whatever, it can be anti-infantry, it can be anti-tank, and so on. The game also has a cover mechanic, which is important. There's negative cover, light cover, and heavy cover. All cover makes your units move slower, but some do it more than others. Negative cover makes you take more damage, and light and heavy cover reduces range damage taken and increases morale generation. Dawn of War also has a good variety of game modes, from capturing and holding control points, annihilation where you need to destroy all enemy buildings and units, hero assassination, and more. One thing that does kinda suck is all AI is set to the same difficulty, so you can't mix and match the AI to have maybe like, I want 1 on brutal and then 3 on normal to fight it. A nitpick, but you know, kind of a bummer. And you can't really choose where you're gonna spawn, it's either random or set for whatever slot you're in. Space Marines are your kind of jack-of-all-trades faction, pretty good at most things. Their tactical marines are very versatile and can be outfitted with various weapons. Scout marines are great, they're able to go invisible and can be equipped with sniper rifles, which are great at taking out infantry, they just take a while to reload. Assault marines are great shock infantry, flying in and out of combat, getting into backlines, locking ranged units into melee. The Force Commander is really strong and can get some really good abilities like the Orbital Strike, and the Librarian is pretty good too, armed with various spells and such. And the Apothecary are just great units to attach to any squad, giving the passive healing. They also have a good selection of vehicles like the Land Speeder, which is a pretty good scout, the Rhino, which is just a unit transport. Both Dreadnoughts are great for pretty much most things. The Whirlwind is probably the best artillery unit in the game in my opinion. And the Land Raider is a fantastic tank, able to either keep its cannons and machine gun or replace them with las cannons. And lastly, the Land Raider, the giant scary unit that pretty much kills everything. Lastly, for infantry, we have the Terminator squads, which can be built after getting the orbital relay. Terminators, instead of spawning normal, can be deep striked anywhere you can see. The same thing goes for any unit that you put inside the orbital relay. It leads to a very aggressive late game for the Space Marines, able to pretty much forward spawn their units. Chaos does play somewhat similar to normal Space Marines, but with a good amount of different units. Their Marines are more or less the same, but with a Chaos flair. The Raptors are also pretty similar to the Assault Marines, but what makes them different are the demons they can spawn. Pink Horrors, which are great early game harassers able to spawn anywhere you can see. Possessed Marines, which to be honest are kind of overpowered, especially when you get their upgrades. They can pretty much deal with any threat, big or small. Obliterator squads are your Terminator equivalent, and faster to boot. They're pretty much just walking tanks like the Terminators, just with less customization. And the Bloodthirster, which can either be summoned on a hero unit or an aspiring champion. The Bloodthirster is pretty much just a killing powerhouse, and is always great fun when you get to spawn it in, but it does cost quite a bit and takes a while to get the upgrade, so usually you don't end up getting it in a game. Chaos also has probably my favorite scout unit, the Chaos Cultist. They're a great early game unit and serve a decent function even in the late game, being surprisingly decent in melee combat, so you usually use them to make an enemy focus on the cultist getting into melee combat to attack you with their main ranged units or something like that. They also get an upgrade to go invisible, which is really nice. Chaos only has a few vehicles. They have the Rhino transport, which is pretty much just the same thing as the Space Marines, the Predator tank, which is fairly similar to the Space Marines tank, and the Defiler, which is a heavy artillery unit and a good melee combatant. Overall a really good unit, and I would mainly build these with 1 or 2 Predators. Both of the Chaos Hero units are really good too. The Chaos Lord is similar to the Force Commander, a good melee unit that boosts morale, and the Chaos Sorcerer is a strong, ability-heavy hero. His Doom Bolt is great, and both of his other abilities are great area denial. Chaos also has a special mechanic that's not too game-changing, but a nice addition. Every Chaos building produces a small area around it, which increases health regen for units. Small, but nice. Orks are definitely my favorite faction in Dawn of War, and in most Warhammer games for that matter. Orks just have so much personality, and their designs are great. Orks are probably the most unique faction in Dawn of War. The way they progress and advance their tech relies on what the game calls Ork Resource. It works as your pop cap, and you increase it by building more Wog Towers. The more Ork Resource you have, the more stuff you can do. Wog towers can also be destroyed, which can be a bummer losing some orc resource and taking you back a bit in tech. But you can build as many of these towers as you want, and they all function as turrets as well, so I usually try to kind of just spam them in my base and at strategic points. The orc pop cap also works in another weird way, not only being linked to your orc resource, but squads don't take up just a set number of pop, like other factions. Each unit you reinforce in a squad counts towards the orc pop cap, with a maximum of 100. It fits with the orcs being a horde faction, feeling like you have a shit ton of units, and it honestly works having squads be like 20 units strong. It feels great. Their first unit is the Slugga Boys. I'd consider it to be the orcs' workhorse. They're a great melee unit and can be equipped with various weapons, but I only ever really equip them with flamethrowers because the other two weapons require setup time, like the Big Shoota. And since the Slugga Boys are melee focused, I just never equip them with any of these. The Shoota Boys are okay, they're highly inaccurate and should really be paired with Sluggas. Storm Boys are like Assault Marines, a fun shock infantry jumping into backlines. Tank Bustas, like the name implies, they're anti-vehicle in building, and can be equipped with rocket launchers. The Knobs are a great heavy melee infantry that are pretty much just great at everything. The Mad Doc is your medic unit, increasing health regen and giving the Fightin' Juice ability, which makes all units in a squad unable to die but still take damage for some time. Orcs also have some pretty good heroes. The Big Mech is a decent starting hero and can be upgraded to teleport and deal with armor pretty well. He can also have a shield that protects him and units around him. And the Orc Warboss is a melee powerhouse that buffs himself and allies. He's great when you attach him to a Knob squad. Orcs also have some fun vehicles. The War Truck is a fast transport vehicle. The War Track is a light vehicle able to deal with other vehicles or infantry. The Kilikon is just a kind of worse dreadnought, and I don't use him all too much. The Looted Tank is an inaccurate but fun artillery unit. And last but not least, their relic unit, the Squigoth, a giant moving fortress that's pretty darn strong. Eldar are an interesting faction, focusing on specialized infantry, their use of abilities, and they also have a system of webway gates that kinda acts like the dwarf and goblin mines from Battle for Middle-earth. Eldar HQs don't give a lot of building radius, but webway gates do, so you mainly use the webway gates to gain building bubbles. This kinda turns them into a forward base heavy faction in my opinion, able to build strong bases anywhere for cheap. Webway gates also can be upgraded, and these upgrades are faction-wide. One increases unit health regen around it, another lets you relocate buildings, and the last one lets you turn all buildings around the webway gate invisible. Webway gates are also able to produce grav platforms, one deals with infantry and the other with vehicles and buildings. These kind of make up for the fact that Eldar infantry can't equip special weapons, so you can attach these to them. Also, the AI just love to spam these, which I find really funny. The base infantry for the Eldar are, in my opinion, fairly expendable. Usually in a one-on-one fight with another faction's basic infantry, I'd say they lose, but don't get me wrong, they aren't bad, especially when paired with the grav platforms I mentioned earlier, and when they get their leader unit, the Warlock. Once they get the Warlock, they get access to a bunch of different abilities. You got the Ranger Squad, which are fun, sneaky snipers, Banshees are your quick melee infantry, Dark Reapers are great for dealing with crowds of infantry and heavy infantry, and lastly, Warp Spiders, which to be honest are just kinda bad. They're the Eldar's like Assault Marine equivalent, and they're just not great. You can use their bomb ability to deal with structures and vehicles, but their main weapons just don't really stack up to anything. Eldar only really have one hero unit, the Farseer. She has great abilities and is a great melee unit. The other hero unit is a squad called the Farseer Council. These guys are pretty fun and are really good at melee, definitely something to keep an eye out for when fighting Eldar. Eldar also have some fun vehicles. The Grav Tank is a fun light tank/transport. The Viper is a quick skirmishing vehicle. My personal favorite, the Wraith Lord, good at dealing with both infantry and vehicles when given the correct upgrades. And lastly, for their vehicles, the Fire Prism, overall just a super strong tank that has a great damage output. The last unit that they have doesn't really fit into any of these other categories, and it's the Avatar of Cain, a giant walking beast of a unit that buffs unit production, unit cap, and morale, and is an insane late game unit. I will be talking about minor spoilers for the campaign, so skip to here if you want to avoid them. Dawn of War's campaign is a fun one where you follow Gabriel Angelos and his librarian friend Isidore, fighting back an orc invasion on planet Tartarus. when they find the remnants of chaos and learn about an Inquisitor that's been sent down to the planet for some unknown reason. You end up fighting through Eldar and find the Chaos Presence, and it corrupts Isidore, leading to a fight between him and Gabriel. And after all that, a big final fight against the Chaos Sorcerer Sindri. Honestly, I love this game's campaign, pretty much all the missions were fun and had a decent challenge. I played through the campaign on hard, and there wasn't anything that was like annoyingly difficult, maybe there's a couple times, but overall it was a really fun campaign. Dawn of War is a fantastic RTS, and definitely my favorite Warhammer 40k game series. The campaign is great, the races are fun and unique, voice acting is great, and it's just a lot of fun. The expansions, which we'll talk about in the future, build upon this game very well. I'll give this game an A, mostly because I know what this game's expansions offer, so if you like RTS games, do yourself a favor and pick this one up.